Hello. The topic for my presentation is interchurch marriages. Firstly, here are definitions of some terms I use in this presentation. The first term is marriage. Canon law says that the marriage covenant by which a man and a woman establish between themselves a partnership of their whole life has, between the baptized, been raised by Christ the Lord to the dignity of a sacrament. The important point to note is, if both spouses are baptized, marriage is a sacrament. Canon law describes mixed marriage as marriage between two baptized persons, one of whom was baptized in the Catholic Church or received into it after baptism, and the other a member of a church or ecclesial community not in full communion with the Catholic Church. The term interchurch marriage was defined in a paper adopted by the Second World Gathering of Interchurch Families as a husband and wife who come from two different church traditions. Both of them retain their original church membership, but so far as they are able, they are committed to live, worship, and participate in their spouse's church also. For me, this definition describes a special type of mixed marriage where both spouses are committed to their own and each other's church traditions. When I talk about interchurch marriage in this presentation, I am talking about one of the spouses being Catholic. I will describe the change in view and requirements of canon law of interchurch marriages, how our understanding of church affects our understanding of interchurch marriages, interchurch families and the domestic church, and interchurch couples and the ecumenical movement. Largely because of reforms called for by the Second Vatican Council, the Code of Canon Law has changed quite remarkably with regard to marriages between Catholics and baptized non-Catholics. The 1917 Code of Canon Law says, everywhere and with the greatest strictness, the Church forbids marriages between baptized persons, one of whom is a Catholic and the other a member of a schismatical or heretical sect. This is a very strong statement. Non-Catholics were schismatics and heretics, and marriages between Catholics and non-Catholics was forbidden. Dispensations were allowed, but the non-Catholic had to promise that children were to be baptized and brought up Catholic. The Catholic had to promise to try to convert the non-Catholic spouse, and mixed marriages were to be celebrated outside the church. It was hoped, and sometimes expected, that the non-Catholic partner would convert, so the whole family could worship together. Simply put, interchurch spouses could end up feeling like second-rate citizens, and their marriage itself construed as second-rate, since they couldn't even be celebrated in church. Vatican II must have given interchurch couples a great hope in a new future together in the church, a renewed understanding of church, and a commitment to unity amongst Christian churches gave rise to many changes. The 1983 Code states that Catholic marriages with other baptized Christians only require permission rather than a dispensation. Mixed marriages are given a higher status since only marriages between a Catholic and a non-Christian require dispensation. The non-Catholic no longer has to promise to have his or her children brought up Catholic. The Catholic must promise to do all in his or her power to have the children baptized and brought up in the church. Compared to the old code, these changes show respect for the religious freedom and conscience of the other parent. This also gives more freedom for the couple to work out family matters related to faith together. The next thing I want to talk about are how the understanding of church contributes to the understanding of interchurch marriages. Cardinal Avery Dulles proposed 5 models that emphasize different aspects of the church. These models help us to understand the mystery, which is church. The 5 models are church as institution, mystical communion, sacrament, herald, and servant. I want to talk about 2 models and how they contribute to different understandings of interchurch families. These are church as institution and church as sacrament. The model of church as institution was a primary model from the late Middle Ages until approximately 1950. This model sees the church as a perfect society with a constitution, rules, a governing body, and members. In this model, interchurch marriages are not encouraged because a non-Catholic is not a member of the institution and presents a special case that needs to be catered for. I think in this model, the marriage between 2 Catholics, whether practicing or not, is seen as preferable to an interchurch marriage. The model of church as sacrament has become more dominant today, especially after Vatican II. The meaning of the word sacrament in this case is something visible that points to God's eternal plan for salvation. Lumen Gentium 1 says, "The Church is in Christ like a sacrament, or as a sign and instrument both of a very closely knit union with God and of the unity of the whole human race." Henri de Lubac said, "If Christ is the sacrament of God, the Church is for us the sacrament of Christ. She represents him in the full and ancient meaning of the term. She really makes him present." So, how does this understanding of church as sacrament relate to interchurch marriages? Lumen Gentium 11 states that the family is the domestic church. If we understand Christian families as a domestic church and Christian marriage as a sacrament, then can we extend this to say the family, and this includes interchurch families, are a sacrament? I think Walter Kaspar is saying this when he says, "The love that exists between man and wife is a sign that makes the reality present. In other words, an epiphany of the love and faithfulness of God that was given once and for all time in Jesus Christ and is made present in the church." So, the model of church as sacrament says that interchurch couples have an important part to play in making Jesus present to us today. This model emphasizes the value of interchurch couples much more than the model of church as institution. Jesus' prayer for the unity in the church also applies to interchurch families, who are the domestic church. The prayer is, "Father, may they be one in us as you are in me and I am in you, so that the world may believe it was you who sent me." I believe that unity in the church is exemplified in interchurch marriages. Interchurch couples are leaders in ecumenism. They choose to participate fully in the other's life, especially in their faith traditions. They have a love that is not simply content with a parallel separate existence, but which yearns for and therefore promotes growth into deeper and deeper unity. This is ecumenism at the most personal level. Pope St. John Paul, at a gathering in York, said to interchurch families, "You live in your marriages the hopes and difficulties of the path to Christian unity." Thomas Niepce Port Leroy, head of the Faculty of Theology and Religious Studies in the University of Leuven, expands on this. On the one hand, he says, interchurch marriages risk experiencing the tragedy of Christian disunity even in the heart of their own home. But on the other hand, they also experience in their sharing of love and life an interpersonal and spiritual unity that gives a foretaste of what it could be like when the ecclesial divisions will be overcome. The Association of Interchurch Families says that interchurch couples, if they have children, exercise a joint responsibility under God for their religious and spiritual upbringing, and they teach them by word and example to appreciate both their Christian traditions. It is important that both Christian traditions are well understood to avoid creating a third church in the family. Individuals who may come into a marriage ignorant and with some prejudices of their spouse's church come to grow in love, understanding, and appreciation of the other's church as well. In this way, interchurch spouses are a visible sign of unity because of their spiritual communion with their church communities. The sharing in both communities brings these communities in some way closer together. Interchurch spouses are also a visible sign of unity because of their marital union. Ruth Reardon, a founding member of the British Association of Interchurch Families, linked her husband and her sexual union and marriage with their Eucharistic union. The strong link between our Eucharistic sharing and our sexual union always seemed very important to us. Both were expressions in this world of our participation together in the love of the Father for the Son, of Christ for the Church, of our love in the Spirit for one another. Marriage and the Eucharist both also point forward to the final consummation, the union of all in the love of God. Ruth and her husband Martin were lucky in that they were able to share the Eucharist on a number of special occasions. But this is not the case for most interchurch couples, and this remains a sadness for them today. In a documentary, Will Faith Do Us Part?, I empathize with Daniel Richardson, a man in an interchurch marriage who says, "It's tough to see her go up and receive the Eucharist and communion without me. It really is. The one that I love the most is able to partake when I am not." There is still an implication today that interchurch marriages find it harder to attain a perfect union than Catholic marriages. The 1993 Directory for the Application of Principles and Norms on Ecumenism states, "The perfect union of persons and full sharing of life, which constitutes the married state, are more easily assured when both partners belong to the same faith community." On the other hand, interchurch marriages have a lot to contribute to a hoped-for union that Jesus prayed for and that the churches are working towards. I conclude with a statement from Thomas Neep's Port Leroy. Whereas the same church family is easily downgraded to becoming a prolongation of the large church into its marginal edges, the little church, in the interchurch scenario, has a genuine and irreplaceable part to play in bringing about the smallest possible but real ecclesial community in the face of the divided Christian churches. Thank you.